As you would know if you watched my 775 average of 12 video, I am now offering one-on-one 3x3 training sessions. I've done several of these sessions so far, and most of them have been people in the intermediate skill range between 20 and 30 seconds. I'm not going to say any names, but almost all of the people I've done sessions with have one common flaw in their solves. They struggle with cross. Based on what I've seen in their solves, I've come up with what I think are the 5 most important pieces of advice for beginner and intermediate solvers when it comes to cross. Before we begin, make sure to join the Brody Bunch by subscribing and clicking the bell icon. And now let's get started. These tips start off simple and get slightly more advanced as we go along, so this one is pretty intuitive. Tip 1 is to make sure to plan your entire cross in your inspection. If you don't plan out your entire cross, you'll have to quickly solve 2 or 3 of your cross pieces, and then you'll have to hurry to find and solve the last few. Planning out your entire solution allows you to plan it all efficiently and get rid of the pausing and panicking caused by having to find the missing cross pieces. As you all know, the longer something is, the harder it is to remember. So forcing yourself to plan out your entire cross is a very good incentive to make it as efficient as possible, which will make it easier to remember. That's why planning your entire cross is easy for me, but it's very difficult for most beginners. It takes them more moves than it takes me. A good way to practice this is by scrambling your cube, then planning out your cross. But before you start doing your cross, you put on a blindfold or close your eyes. Then try to do your cross with your eyes closed. At first you'll mess up a lot, but you'll gradually get better and better at it, and soon you'll be able to do it right 100% of the time. Tip number 2 is to never cube rotate during cross. Never might be a strong word, but it's important to be able to distinguish between situations where it's necessary and where it's not. And in order to do that, you need to stop cube rotating during cross for a while so you can't use it as a crutch. Not being able to cube rotate during cross forces you to choose the best possible angle to do your cross from in order to avoid as many awkward moves as possible. Let me give you a very simple example. Let's say that you have this scramble for cross. Instead of doing it from this angle and solving it by doing F, L prime, B, you can do a Y prime from that angle and then instead solve it as R, F prime, L. However, I still think that B moves are completely fine during cross. Move count is crucial for cross, and if doing B moves makes it more efficient, so be it. So let's give an example of how we can avoid cube rotating for a cross solution where it seems necessary. For a cross case like this, I think a lot of people would start with blue on front, and they would start by inserting this orange edge, and then cube rotate so orange is on front, and then insert this green, and then insert blue with D prime, R prime. But in reality, you can do almost the exact same solution without cube rotating at all. If you just start with orange on front, you can insert the orange edge with B prime R and then finish off just like before by inserting green and then blue. And that's just one example of where you can avoid a cube rotation. In general, you should think about how you can plan or execute your cross in the best way possible without cube rotating. Tip number 3, figure out ways to solve combinations of pieces. This can mean a few things. It can mean solving cross pieces together in ways that can save moves over solving them separately, and it can also mean using the solution for one cross piece to better set up for solving the next one. Let's show you a very simple example. Let's say you have this situation in your cross, where you have this green edge that needs to be inserted, and then this red edge in the top layer. Instead of solving them separately by solving green with R prime, and then solving red with L, F prime, L prime, you can save a move by starting off with a U2 so that when you solve green, it sets up red so it can be solved with an F. Let's take that one step further. On this scramble, we have a very similar solution. Solving this red edge will set up the green edge perfectly, so we can start off by solving orange with an R2, and then solve red with L prime, and then green with F prime, and then finally blue with the D prime, R prime. And these are all just very simple examples of this idea. This can be applied in much more depth to 3 or even 4 pieces at once, but there's no way I can show that properly in this video. If you want to see that kind of thing applied in solves, I have a cross examples video that you can watch by clicking on the card, and I'll also link it in the description. Okay, tip number 4 is to be able to solve the cross misaligned. Being able to do this allows you to solve the cross from a D, D prime, or D2 off, and then align it at the very end of your cross solution, which can be much more efficient than having to solve everything onto its respective center. In order to do this, you'll have to be able to tell where cross pieces belong relative to each other. You can tell by looking at the relative positions of the centers if you have to, but it's best to just memorize it, which isn't that difficult. This is how I remember for the white cross. Green is across from blue, and red is across from orange, and then if I'm going clockwise, they go in the order green, orange, blue, red. That probably sounds like a lot, and it can be a lot, especially if you're color neutral, but it's not too bad. Here's an example of me doing this in a solve. I have my blue edge already in the D layer, and everything else is in what seems to be good places, but they don't quite work together super well. But what you can do is realize that when blue is on the left like this, red belongs on the front. So that means that you can solve the red edge with U2, F2. That sets up the green and orange pieces into the same situation I showed you earlier. You can't solve orange yet because orange has to be across from red. So you need to do a D prime first. Then you can solve your last 2 cross edges with R prime F, and then align everything with a D2. I really like that example because it brings everything we've gone over so far all together and shows you what a really good cross looks like. And finally, tip number 5 is to learn and recognize situations where you can use Keyhole, build an X cross, or preserve an F2L pair. This is definitely the most advanced tip in this video. In order to actually be able to use this to your advantage, you have to have everything else in this video down, because this can define your approach to how you choose and plan cross. Let's give a ridiculously easy example to show you what Keyhole is. Let's say that this is your scramble. The obvious solution to solve cross is to do an R2 to insert your last edge, and then to do D to line it up. But let's take a closer look. When you do an R2 to insert this last edge, you don't just insert the edge, you also insert this corner, which gives you this block. Because you have this corner solved, if you can solve the edge that would make an F2L pair with this corner, and then align the cross, then you would solve the F2L pair, giving you an X cross. So in this case, that edge is right here, so I can insert that into the back, then line up my cross, and I have an X cross. This is what Keyhole is. You can do the same thing in reverse where the edge is already solved and you insert the corner, and you can apply this in F2L to have much faster edge insertions in certain situations, but that's a video for another day. Going back to talking about cross, Keyhole can be really helpful for making X crosses if you plan it in inspection, but it can be really slow if you decide to do it on the fly. That means that when you're planning cross, you should keep an eye out for if a corner or edge will insert itself, or even modify your solution so it does. And to generalize this a little more, when you see a 1x2 block on your cross color, your first thought should be, how can I turn this into an X cross? And if you see a pre-solved F2L pair in inspection, your first thought should be, how can I solve cross so this pair is preserved? If you can do either of those things while only adding a few moves to your cross solution, it's worth it. If you can learn and apply all of the tips in this video, your cross should be much more efficient and much faster than before. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, leave a like, and make sure to subscribe to see all of the tutorials that I make. If you want one of the one-on-one 3x3 training sessions that I mentioned at the beginning, you can buy one by going to the link I left in the pinned comment down below. I also have a separate Facebook page and YouTube channel for those sessions, and I'll have links to both in the description. All of that helps me out a lot, so thank you all in advance. I'll see you guys later, and I hope you have a wonderful day. This is Brody, signing out.